What is up, everybody? I am Kevin Iole. I will be in New York for UFC 281 at Madison Square Garden. And of course, one of the fights I am looking forward to most is the co-main event between Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler. Dustin is joining me right now. Dustin, I was mentioning to you over the last 66 months, so 5.5 years, this is going to be the ninth person that you fought that has had a title of some sort, but all 9 of the previous ones have been UFC champions. 9 out of 10 fights. That is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's a pretty crazy track record right there. But hey, this guy's a former world champion, but has wins over former UFC world champions as well.
Right. So that's,
Yeah.
I mean, a former Bellator champion, so he knows how to win at a high level. I guess the question I wanted to ask you about that is, what is the toll that takes? It's different than just fighting guys maybe you face on a fight night, right? Because mentally and physically, I imagine it's harder to fight guys who are at the very top of the echelon as opposed to maybe more in the middle of the division.
I think it speaks to my skill set and the caliber of fighter I am. Somebody might make their way up to that opportunity, but to be 10 fights in a row fighting the best of the best, says something. You don't fall into those spots. You put yourself into those spots by working and winning fights and being exciting and grinding. And that's what I've done my whole career.
When you came into the UFC, you had a lot of hype behind you. People had a lot of expectations for you. Is this kind of what you envisioned when you first came here? This kind of presence, you're a foreign, you've held a belt, you've fought, some people think Khabib is the greatest fighter ever. You fought, all the big names. There's nobody you have done. Is this sort of what you envisioned back? What is it, 2011 now?
Yeah, January 1st, New Year's Day 2011 is when I debuted in the UFC.
Crazy. So this is what you thought it would be?
I didn't really, I had no idea what was going to happen. I just wanted to be the best that I could be. But man, it's been a fun ride for sure. And next week we got another big one on the resume. We're about to handle business. So I didn't think that far. I didn't think like, am I going to be fighting champion after champion? I was just trying to get my hand raised by any means, especially as a young kid.
What has it been like? So given that track record I said you had, the last little while it's been tough to get a fight. Like it was hard for you for a while to get a fight. You're looking for people to fight you and everything. Given what you've done in the sport, were you surprised it was this hard to get somebody in the octagon?
I'm surprised it took this long. It's been 10, 11 months since my last, 10 months since my last fight. But I don't even know what took so long to get this thing booked. I guess that just wasn't, UFC didn't see things lining up certain ways. I'm not sure, but I'm glad I have a fight.
Yeah, and this is a big one. Now, you and Michael, two of the nicest guys in the UFC, but you guys haven't been getting along all that much. It seems like there's a little bit of heat between you. And, I guess if I ever thought there would be a fight where everybody gets along, it's all touchy feely before the fight, it would be this one. What kind of led to the, I don't want to say bad blood, but, sharp words between you guys?
I think it started maybe in Abu Dhabi whenever they asked me about fighting him, and I was kind of brushed it off. He took that like I was disrespecting him. And then since then, it's just, we're in the same division. We're on a collision course. This is fighting. That's just what it is,
Right. He is a guy, goes 90 million miles an hour, right? I mean, he gets out there and gets after it. Does that have to change your mindset when going into the fight, when a guy is, not going to get to feel the fight for the first couple of minutes or even the first round, but is going to storm out and really, fight at an extraordinarily high pace? Does that affect the way you game plan?
I mean, every opponent brings something different to the table, but when a guy like Mike comes out guns blazing, I have to take that into account in training camp and how we approach the fight. I have to keep myself protected early. He's a very explosive, powerful, athletic fighter, big puncher. And if I didn't pay attention to that, especially early, it could be huge consequences. So of course we do.
Is this a must win from a standpoint, like, we know how deep this division is, right? And whoever loses, is going to have lost a couple in a row at minimum, right? And put you back, so you're that much further away from the champion if you lose the fight. So to me, it feels almost like it's a must win for both of you guys. Do you look at it that way?
I look at every fight that way. Every fight is a must win.
Interesting. So, there's no more significance on this one because of, sort of what's going on.
The division's always changing. Lightweight has been top heavy for a while. We have a new champion now that opens things up, new matchups, new opportunities. But I always put pressure on myself every fight, especially coming off of a loss. I've been fighting for 15 years and I've never lost 2 fights in a row, and I don't plan on starting now. I've always tried to put together and my game and learn from losses, go back to the drawing board. And I've had plenty of time after this last fight in December to work on things, to try to get better, to focus. And it's more about proving it to myself. I want to go out there and show growth, show new wrinkles, and tighten up things that I thought I was doing sloppy. So it's always personal pressure. It's not about the division to me. It's about me being able to look in the mirror after the fight.
You brought up another amazing thing. All these crazy things about you. So 9 of your previous 10 fights were against champions. Now you just mentioned, and I should have known this, but I didn't off the top of my head. You've never lost back-to-back fights given the caliber of guys you're fighting. That's extraordinary consistency. How do you maintain that level every fight? What is the secret to, sports are up and down. We all know that, some people have highs, some people have lows. You've been pretty even keel at a high, even keel at a high level. What's the key to maintaining that kind of success over a long period of time?
Consistency, don't get complacent. I've always wanted more, whether it was climbing the division or my skill set. To remain a student. That's what I tell these young guys whenever we talk about longevity in the sport. It's one thing to get to the top level. It's another thing to stay there for a decade, like I have in the UFC. And the mindset of being a student, I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to pick people's brains, ask questions, watching things, how guys are setting stuff up on the mats, just remaining a student, not acting like I know too much. If I stay in that mindset, then I'm excited to go into the gym. I'm excited to talk and hit the mats and learn and push myself.
Now, I guess I got to ask you about what you've learned. A video came out on social media yesterday or today that I saw that was about from a year ago, but you and Brian Shaw were grappling, and Brian Shaw, the 4-time world's strongest man. I think he weighed 480 pounds. And for people who haven't seen the video, it's fun to watch, but Dustin chokes him out. What is that like when you're in there with a behemoth like that?
That's not the full video. He taps me out later on by just putting his weight on top of me.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met, but a huge individual, man. He's a giant. It was fun. He has no grappling experience, but just his strength and size, just to get my legs around him, to take his back, to try to hang on to him. He's just such a huge human being. It was fun. It was a good experience.
Well, I looked at it when I was watching it, and I saw you trying to get your arm around his neck, and I'm going, he may not be able to wrap all the way around.
Just getting my arms around his neck is like trying to grab someone's waist. That's how big his neck is.
Yeah, that was what is the effect of strength in a fight? So obviously that's crazy strength, right? You're not going to see that in a UFC fight, but I know technique is the most important thing, but what is the effect of huge physical strength? If you fight somebody that's maybe stronger than average, is there anything you have to do to compensate for that?
Technique usually, but strength is a big thing in fights that can make up for technique. Like if you're trying to get up off the mat or build back up on the fence, and you're technically doing it a little wrong, but you have the strength and explosiveness, it kind of fills some of the gaps and makes guys be able to do more than their skill set, would allow them to do.
Right.
But it has to be sustainable. When you're fighting the best guys in the world, it's not one explosion. And unless you knock them out or something, it's not one explosion that happens that checkmate wins the fight, unless it's like a big punch or something like that. So if you have the strength, you have to be able to sustain it, because the guys at this level, they're going to keep coming, keep walking forward, right, stay in your face.
That was quite a video. I think people need to see that just for fun. That's a really good one. 2 other things I want to ask you about. Just, we referenced Islam Makhachev winning the championship. You fought Charles Oliveira. What did you see in that fight, and how impressed were you by Islam's performance?
Man, very impressed. Very impressed. He went in there and did it as smooth as you can possibly go in there and do it. No marks, no cuts, no bruises. And he's a world champion. That's a sweet night, man. I'm very, very impressed with him.
As a potential opponent for you, right? You know, we know he has this great wrestling, and that's something that's really tough for anybody to overcome. But I thought like his striking was so important in that fight, you know, where he hurt him right off the bat with it. And, you know, his hands were good. And, you know, maybe his hands aren't as good as some other guys, but when you combine it with that wrestling, that makes him a problem. So, you know, when you look at that striking, how much of a benefit is that to him to have something like that to go along with the wrestling?
I mean, it's huge. You know, you can't be in this day and age in mixed martial arts, you can't be a fighter who has one thing, you know. You have to be able to do it all. You have to be a mixed martial artist. And he showed that. He went out there and hurt Charles and then put him away at his own game. You know, that's the highest level.
Yeah. So make the case for yourself. So if you beat Mike Chandler, who, you know, Mike his record is not, I think, indicative of how good of a fighter he is since he's been in the UFC. He's been in unbelievable fights since he's been in the UFC. You beat Mike Chandler, given what else I said you did, make the case for yourself being the next challenger for Makhachev.
I mean, I feel like my track record and my work speaks for itself. I don't need to get on a platform and beg for a title shot. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to fight next weekend and let the cards fall where they may.
New York, Madison Square Garden, the mecca of the fight game. Dustin Poirier and Mike Chandler will be fighting there. Dustin, I appreciate you, brother. Wish you good luck. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, man.
See ya.